Welcome to the East County Sports Report. I'm Ramon Scott, and I'm joined by Dave Dickens of EastCountySports.com. Dave, we're in Week 9, and all of our games this week are very attractive matchups. Some of them will go a long way in deciding Grossmont League titles. We have some breaking news this week I want to touch with you. First, Dave, we got the big Helix Grossmont game, Santana at Monte Vista. Just today, I wanted to let you know about this. The coaches, it looks like they're going to go ahead with that 7-4 split. I want to get your immediate reaction. This is going to be next year. They're going to have those top 4 teams that we've talked about in the Grossmont Hills League. Everyone knows who they are by now. Helix, Steel Canyon, Grossmont, and Granite Hills, and the other 7 teams will be in the Grossmont Valley League. Pretty sure this is official.
I think that it's about time that Ron Berner, in particular, no offense to the other squads, but that his squad has finally gotten a bit of a break. I mean, he has been at Berner, and the El Capitan Vaqueros have had the toughest schedule for at least since 2014, maybe even before that. And you know what? They had a great year in 2014. Brad Cagle. Ever since then, though, their schedule has been the toughest schedule that anybody could play in the Hills with the players that they have. I am finally grateful, Jerry Schneep and all you at CIF. Thank you very much for listening to the requests of the people and of the coaching staffs, everybody in the district. Same thing goes for Valhalla. I think this is going to be, it's going to be more competitive. It's going to be more entertaining. I mean, the sky is the limit. I just think there's going to be more change, if you will. There's going to be different teams. No one's going to be the New England Patriots and win 25 championships and win the league every year for, let's just say, for 25 years straight. I know that's not the number, but I'm just, you get my point. And just to throw something in there for to break it up a little bit, because it is, in all seriousness, I think this is great news, but also big news. Brock Osweiler retired today.
Not Brock Lobster.
You talk about taking your money and running. Anyhow, I thought I'd throw a curveball in there. Let's get to the biggest game of the week, of course.
I will. I just have one comment on this, Dave, and I want to. You mentioned also, maybe our other piece of breaking news. You mentioned Jerry Schneep. I don't know how much. Maybe the CIF had to approve this. Is what you're thinking, and I'm thinking maybe that was indeed the case as well, because probably the Grossmont Conference athletic people with Mr. Wilbur and the coaches get together, and maybe they do have to go to CIF and say, hey, you know, we're making this late change because this is going to take place next year. So that might have went down. It was just 1 month ago that Monte Vista was going to actually end up being the team to grow in the Grossmont Hills League, and Valhalla and El Capitan would grow in the Grossmont Valley. Now Monte Vista has been coming off, some epic seasons of late, but their roster is a bit reduced, and I think it's noticeable to everyone who's played them or is associated with that program, despite their success. We're going to talk about them playing in a big game this week, despite a few woes. Monte Vista basically in the league championship game this week. But one thing, Dave, that it alleviates problems for the Grossmont Hills League teams moving forward, those 4 teams that have kind of moved ahead of those Valley League teams. We just saw this week Steel Canyon. I talked about it last week. Steel Canyon was number 1 in the official CIF power ratings, which meant that they were the top team in Division I. You talk about how important strength of schedule is or isn't according to the rankings, whether it be the kind of the Cal Preps, Max Preps power ratings that everyone looks at or the official CIF power ratings, but Steel Canyon, they were first last week in the open division. Well, they played El Capitan. They did a nice job. They won 35-13. El Capitan, they're down in Division 3. They've played some weaker competition, not according to their standards. They've played some tough games, but because El Capitan has played some comparable games, it eventually affects all the teams in the Grossmont Hills League. Their strength of schedule, unfortunately, goes down because they are playing El Capitan and Valhalla, which, we know that traditionally these are very, very good programs. They're in a bit of a downturn right now. Even Valhalla, despite their success, they're coming off that long losing streak over 2 years. So Helix and Steel Canyon are the teams kind of affected. Also Grossmont and Granite, but Steel Canyon just this week, Dave, fell from number 1 in the open division power rankings down to number 4. And with them playing Valhalla this week, it's not out of the question that even if they win, like they did last week against El Capitan, a Division 3 team, Valhalla might end up kind of knocking Steel Canyon out of the top 4 right now just because they're in Division 3. It's no fault of their own, but you see Steel Canyon dropped 3 spots and they won their game last week. And, Carlsbad is right behind Steel Canyon with a 6-1 record. Steel Canyon's undefeated, but they might be on the outside looking in unless they beat Helix. So that's just what I want to add to that. Let's get to the games this week, Dave, and we'll start with the 2 of those powerful teams and a team that certainly right now has an outside chance to make the Open Division Championship. It'd have to start right here in the Battle of the Musket, Dave. Helix and Grossmont, they're meeting for the 64th time. You can tell us about the short-term history. I can tell us about the long-term history, but one thing's for sure, and I'll just say this before you get started. Grossmont's due for a victory, no matter how much Helix has dominated over the last 2 decades.
This is true. I want to make sure that I say this politically correct because I really honestly don't want to offend anybody. And but as we were speaking about the strength of schedule and who we played, with all due respect, some of the teams that Grossmont played early on as opposed to the teams that they played early on last season, I think there was a bit of a difference. I think their schedule once they started playing league, I will say that they started to really impress me. I mean, we played Olympian. We did real well against them. We started off with a bang in the non-league. We did exactly what we were supposed to do. We played Granite Hills last week, and boy, talk about a battle till the end, a 1-point game. Are any of us surprised that it was, of course, once again, the man, Jamie Odom, pulling it out, doing it all on his own at the very end of the game and winning it for the Hillers on Granite Hills field. And, the funny thing was...
And on homecoming. On Granite's homecoming.
Correct. And I want to say that sideline with the Hillers, that's exactly what they wanted to do. And that's what they set out to do was, let's not let this homecoming be as great as it's anticipating, and they're anticipating it to be. And let's go out there and show them what Grossmont's made of. And Grossmont went out there, and up until about a minute 40 left, Granite had it under control. Granite Hills looked like they were very similar. I don't want to say a carbon copy, but very similar to the game the week before against the Cougars. They had the game towards the end. They had the game in hand. They could have taken that 1-2. They could actually right now, at this point, they could have won both league games. They could be undefeated. Unfortunately, not to take anything away from Grossmont, but that last game, as much as Jamie and the rest of the Hillers played offensively and defensively, I think that it came down to a couple of Eagle miscues, really, that assisted the Hillers in the win. And I'm telling you right now, Coach Carlo, I'm not taking it away from your boys because they worked their tails off. They played fantastic. At the same time, a couple of miscues though, on the part of the Granite Hills Eagles, and I think that it's going to be a hard road for the Eagles, and we'll talk about that later. But I think that this Grossmont team, it's healthy. It's got its healthy line back, as I said at the beginning of the year. It's got a healthy defense, and Jamie Odom is having probably the best. Well, not probably. He's having the best year of his career, and the balance is fantastic as well. He's got a great backfield. All he does is talk about how great the blocking schemes are every time I talk to Jamie, and how great his backs are, and the blocking that he's getting even from his receivers. And come on, what's your favorite tandem? May not be your favorite tandem, but I'll still never forget last year's, and I'll carry it over to this year. But it is his go-to guy, and it's always Odom to Schicker. On the other side, Helix. Let's just. What doesn't Helix have? Where's there a missing piece as far as the Helix Highlanders are concerned, offensively, defensively, special teams? There isn't. They got two great quarterbacks. One of the quarterbacks actually a great defensive player as well. And he's going to end up being a quarterback once he graduates high school. But yet we got a receiver turned quarterback who's been absolutely fantastic. Got a great running game. Unfortunately, we don't know the situation quite yet unless you have some news on that on Ellie and Noah at this point as far as how the back's doing at this point. I think that could play a factor. Other than that, though, we don't give enough credit every week, which the newest, and that's in Mr. Washington. I think he has been a huge part of that Helix offense and a huge part of Mr. Brown's success, as well as the Helix team as a whole. But I just don't see any holes. Defense may be a little suspect at times, but we beat Cathedral, okay? And we beat Cathedral in the big way. And not only did we beat Cathedral, but then the next week, we knocked out the number 2 Saints at the time. They're number 1. Who can beat them? Is it going to be the Hillers? Are they going to unbolt that thing? That's really, I think this is the one of the tougher Helix teams this year. But what do you have to say?
Well, Grossmont's coming into this game really with one of the highest rankings that it's had in a long, long time. Coming into this matchup, I mean, certainly we've seen them get into the top 10 in a few years past. But, with Elelion Noah possibly out of this game, I mean, we saw him earlier this week, working out at a facility and still wearing that boot on his leg. Really unclear as to his status. Christian Washington did have 101 yards and 2 touchdowns in that win over Valhalla last week. Cameron Brown passed for 2 touchdowns. Jaden Brown, his brother, had that interception return for a touchdown. So I think there's some intangibles. Definitely give Grossmont an outside chance to finally get over the hump and beat Helix. I think that, you kind of mentioned maybe Grossmont's strength of schedule is what kind of hurts them. I mean, they definitely are playing the weakest schedule in all of Division I, but frankly, that doesn't matter because the formula has worked for them. They are rated 7th out of all the teams in the county, with that 6-1 record. So, I think it kind of shakes out okay. as far as that's concerned. It's just that every time that we've kind of hinted that Grossmont might have an outside chance to win, it's been 23 straight meetings now, 22 years in a row. One of them was a playoff game last year. I mean, a playoff game really that they just played 11 months ago, and Helix won, 63-7, something to that effect. So, and funny, Dave, these two teams. This was the week of the lightning storms last year. So I don't know if you checked the weather forecast this week, but I don't think there's rain in the forecast or lightning in the forecast. Going to have to play this one out in its entirety. Helix is ranked 10th in the state right now, so even with their one loss and after they reached their pinnacle in those state rankings, they're still kind of right back up there again and kind of on a historical high as well. So I think the pedestal is just that much tougher to reach for Grossmont, but wow, I can only imagine the crowd that's going to be out there on Friday night. It's going to be reminiscent of those first games these teams played when they played at Aztec Bowl in front of 5,000 fans, when they played for Old Betsy the first time. That's the name of the musket, by the way. But in 1951, they first played for that gun, and it's since been bolted on the wall at Helix High School for the last 22 years.
So how many lunches, if we tacked on my father's lunches that he had owed you from the past meetings of the Highlanders and the Scotties now?
Yeah, it's funny because the first years when I was, becoming friends with your dad, and it was kind of like Grossmont won some and Helix won some. I mean, practically for the first 40 years they played, the series was split. And, I knew your dad certainly for over 30 years, and that reaches back, into the mid 80s when Grossmont did win a few games in this series. So
why? Do you know? Okay. My biggest question, and this is to, if anybody's watching, they want to chime in as well. We definitely welcome it. And I'm going to ask Ramon that right now. What is a good reason why Helix has owned this series for so long and Grossmont has not been able to take back that musket? What's the reasoning behind it? I mean, Grossmont's had some fantastic teams out there.
I think some of it has to do with school size. For several years back, I think Helix did have a larger school for a while. I mean, when it first started, Grossmont was a slightly larger school. They had originally planned that the schools would be a kind of even size, but it didn't work out in the beginning. Grossmont had the higher student enrollment. The first year of Helix was actually conducted on Grossmont's campus because, get this, Dave, when they were building Helix High School, they had construction delays. So even 70 years later, not much has changed, in society.
Yeah, head over to Monte Vista. But yeah,
anyway, the Scotties are favored to win, Dave. They might be favored to win. I don't know. I think most of the rating sites have them by about 4 touchdowns. I don't know if it'll be that big of a discrepancy. I think Grossmont may actually have some foothold in this game and might be keeping that thing close. But I wonder about the game, kind of like when Grossmont played Madison at home. Grossmont played a great game, and they were in it for 3 quarters. And then the game just got away from them. And Madison, if you equate a team like Madison to Helix, Madison is ranked just 1 notch ahead of Grossmont, by the way, in the official CIF power ratings, 6th. And Helix actually has fallen behind, even though Helix still gets all 31 first-place votes in the media poll this week. In the official CIF power ratings, Cathedral Catholic is back in first ahead of Helix. And you can only wonder, if Helix might drop again once a little bit more, if they could fall behind Saints. I don't know. Still, right now, we're looking at Cathedral, Helix, and Saints, followed by either Steel Canyon or Carlsbad at this point. Obviously, if Grossmont wins, that's going to change everything, and they're an immediate contender, not only for it'll be big news. I mean, Dave, if Grossmont wins the game, I'm going to go on this live stream immediately following the game, and we're going to be on all night like a breaking news story, like fake news on TV. We're going to go all night coverage, wall to wall, for 6 hours until 6 a.m. talking to people because no one's going to be able to get it out of their system.
Yeah, I don't know if I want to talk to the other side though. After that game, yes, the Hillers will be extremely excited, and the surrounding areas of Mount Helix will. I don't think you'll see a light go out until the sun comes up. However, on this one, after we've pretty much done a pretty good analysis on this, I'm gonna say I'm gonna give Grossmont a little bit more of a chance, but I'm gonna say it's still gonna be Helix by 14.
I'll agree. I'll just stop right there and say Helix by 14. Maybe they get an extra touchdown. Grossmont tries to wing it, and they're trying to get back in it. And if they do, hey, I think if it is a 14-point game, that'd probably be a pretty great job by both teams. So,
well, I tell you one thing. I think that if ever Tom Carlo has his troops getting ready, I think this is definitely the one, as usual, on the calendar, and the one that he's wanted to win since he took over. And boy, with this, I've seen that headset come off a couple times, but boy, I think this would almost be like the graduation cap coming off if they win that one. But yeah. Anyway, again, yeah, we got Helix by 14.
Yeah, yep, going with Helix. Good luck to Grossmont, and like I said, we're gonna have special coverage of that game if they
Do you
win.
see that? Do you see that down there too, Ramon? We got a
Oh
down
yeah,
there.
okay, Brett Fisher chiming in. He says they fear the name Helix and are intimidated before they get off the bus. Well, I think that's one of the factors in this game. It's going to be Helix getting off the bus this time. It's at Grossmont. They're at home. El Elyon Noah could be missing this game. So there's a few intangibles. There's a few intangibles in there. All right, you're right. We got to move on and take a look at another. I think that's kind of the championship game right now over in the Valley League. I mean, Helix certainly still has one more big game to go, or Grossmont, but playing Steel Canyon, the little triumvirate of games coming up. So not settled yet in the Hills League, and it won't be settled in the Valley League necessarily. But Dave, if the Santana Sultans can defeat the Monte Vista Monarchs on Friday night, the Santana Sultans will clinch at least a share of the Grossmont Valley League Championship. It would be their first league title in 20 years. They're expected to win this game, but Monte Vista has earned the right to be the home team with an undefeated 1-0 record, and they beat Santana last year on that rain-filled night, that lightning-filled night, 35-0 in one half of football when Jamon McClendon rushed for 375 yards and 5 touchdowns.
You know, what people are forgetting about, I think, is there are still a few very talented kids on that Monte Vista Monarch team that are left from that team. I think too many people weigh it on, and don't get me wrong, Jamon McClendon was he was a man among kids on those fields, or should I say among boys. But at the same time, I think we seem to still forget too, Big Blake Schmidt that went on to Montana State. He had a lot to do with that championship too, and people need to really remember that. And that he left his younger brother over there that we had on the show last night. Really a brilliant kid, eloquent speaker. I think probably gives you 150% every time he's on the field. I bet you if we had if we could get Coach Hamamoto on the phone, I think he'd echo the same words of admiration of just how well this kid is as a student as well. I mean, we heard him speak about how interested he is in his academics as well. If he were to go to select a D1 or a D2 type college based on academics, and selling himself a little short, on the size thing. Uh, you know, some players have left our conference and ended up changing positions just so they could continue at the college level and play at the D1 or D2 level. But you have to admire that he is also thinking about his future academically. But great player too. I think he can have a lot of impact on that game, along with one of our also our athletes of the week early on in the season, and happened to have, I think that last game he happened to have 3 sacks as well again. That he had 3 sacks earlier, and that's Sebastian Valdez. I think he can have a super big impact in this game against Santana, and as well as the Sultans have been playing in the trenches. I think that this Monte Vista defense, they know what they're doing, and I think Coach Culver is definitely preparing them, and he's got a good history and a good track record of being a pretty darn good coordinator himself, and so I'm sure he's got his schemes set and ready and in motion. So let's not forget about that. The Monarchs have a couple of tools left in their shed too, and they're looking pretty sharp, and even the defensive backs are going to be pretty quick, and that in like the two-way starter, Mr. Silva, Ruben Silva as the quarterback, and also made quite a few tackles as a defensive back. So there's a lot of speed on the defense too. Maybe not the size, but there's a lot of speed. Santana, what do you say? They got so many weapons. They have, we'll say once again, 27 seniors that returned this year, and I think they've all remained on the field healthy. Muta was possibly not going to make it to the game, according to some sources, but he made a nice run back to start off that one last week. But it's players like Muta, Temple going to Hughes, Temple going to Randy Smith. I mean, what else do you need? I mean, he can throw to pretty much anybody he's got receiver wise. He's got probably one of the better, if not the best, offensive lines right now in the Valley League, and you'd probably have to agree. I mean, and they are, and they have such a great defensive line on the other side. Undefeated, tough team, probably like you said, best Santana team in at least over a decade. But don't sell those. Don't sell the home team out too short either, because it may not be any given Sunday. We'll call it any given Friday. I'll tell you, Coach Estes, you've done a great job. I am severely impressed with the Santana Sultans and the fantastic job they've done this year. Every single one of them, great kids, but don't sell Hamamoto and a couple of tricks up his sleeve and those Monarchs, because they're going to be ready to play. I personally, I want to go for the upset, but that Santana team is just too loaded. But I am going to say Santana by a touchdown.
Yeah, Dave, right now the Monarchs, they're the defending champs, right? I mean, until you come and take our crown, our banner away, we're the champs. And that's what Coach Yamamoto can sell to his troops this week as they play Santana. Here's the thing. We talk about how well Santana has done to keep this winning streak alive, the 8-0 start, and how they've actually played very tough teams along the way. That's what has been most impressive about it. Every team they've played has been has a winning record or only one loss, or it's their best team in years at that school. Well, here now, Santana's going up in class to play Monte Vista. Monte Vista is a Division II team, right? That's why they were going to move the Hills League because you have those 4 teams that are in Division I, and now Monte Vista has emerged to be in Division II, but they're kind of sliding back to the other guys. That's why it's kind of like a competitive balance. There are a lot of people that aren't happy about 4 and 7, a lot of important people, a lot of people that, you want to respect what they have to say. But it looks like this is the best situation for those elite teams to let them compete at that elite level with the Cathedral Catholics, the St. Augustines, the Carlsbad, the Mission Hills, the Lincolns, the Madisons, and all that. But
Steve Dolan, by the way, there you go. You got your request, sir. Go on.
Yeah, well, no, I think he was actually calling for the inclusion of Christian, and I think a lot of people were calling for like 4-team leagues, 3-4-team leagues. But again, it would never work out. I know this. Christian is better as anybody. I think on the media people, and it just wouldn't work out. I mean, I think we talked with it, last year with them, and it just would never work out. But let me get back to this, Dave. So the Monarchs are back in the title game, if you will. I mean, Santana is going to have another chance, or Monte Vista, whichever team wins this game. They got to win more games, but Isaiah Gardner is the back this year. He had 173 yards in that game against Mount Miguel, a good game for Monte Vista. They ended up running kind of strong on Mount Miguel, 55-34, and quarterback Ruben Silva, he rushed for 2 touchdowns, and Giovanni Olivas returned that kickoff 77 yards for a touchdown. But you mentioned Santana's offensive line, and you said, well, I think they're one of the best offensive lines in the Valley League. I think they are, but I think that Monte Vista's offensive line, Aaron Bustos, Jesse Schrader, Angel Villanueva, Brandon Narvaez, Jared Reinhold, who's up for Homecoming King, give Monte Vista a real shot in the trenches. I think actually Santana, even though they're in Division IV, I think they have one of the best offensive lines in the county as a unit. And I think so does Monte Vista. I think their offensive line is pretty good. So maybe there's a little bit of an equal footing there. Not that those lines will match up, but in the trenches a little bit, some guys going 2 ways. And I think that that's where Santana's been able to excel. They've been able to kind of push other teams out of the way a little bit, allow for their skill players to roam into space and things like that. So I think that's what gives Monte Vista equal footing here. I think Monte Vista's secondary kind of matches up a little bit with those Santana skill players. So this is going to be a really, really intriguing game and a great co-feature certainly on Friday night. Coach Ham, he had a record-setting win last week in that victory, his 230th career win, passing John Shacklet for 4th on the all-time section list, and now the Master could add another league title here if they can get by and upset Santana. But Dave, Monte Vista owned Santana in that game last season. Of course, with Chaban when that lightning storm came, but Santana last week, they overcame a lot of hurdles in that win over West Hills. They were on a long losing streak, to West Hills, and got the Jack Dale Cup back from them after all those years. So I kind of see that this is officially, Santana's best team. You mentioned a decade. I think you were referring to that 2011 team, their best team since that team in 2011. And, I've got the Sultans winning this game. And I think I'll call it by 2 touchdowns. I think it might actually end up being 7 to 10 points. I think Monte Vista is being overlooked by a lot of people in this game.
But again, everybody's also saying it is the year of the Sultan.
Yeah. And for comparison, I'll just make this last note. The Monarchs beat the Matadors by 19 last Friday night, right? Well, Santana defeated Mount Miguel on the road 56-14 a week earlier. So that kind of shows the difference. Yeah, the disparity right now, I think, in the two clubs. don't sell Monte Vista short. They need a win bad. They need an upset win to kind of guarantee their playoff spot. They're in 12th right now in the official ratings. So they could lose this game and still find a way back into the playoffs with a couple of victories, but this would go a long way in everything, really. So, okay, well, get out there early to that one too, because they have some construction issues over there.
Yes. Please do get out there at least. But you folks, if you thought the Santana and West Hills game out at Santana was a bit of a hurdle to get in, my suggestions for this game, it's going to be another one with huge attendance, playoff implications. So I would definitely try to get there at least, and that's at the very least, an hour and a half before kickoff.
Yeah, yep. Okay, Dave, now we're going to talk about the Battle of the Hammershaw Helmet. And, just a few years ago, Valhalla was the one on a 5-game winning streak. But, the powers have shifted over the last couple of years. And the Cougars who defeated Steel Canyon in that game 35-13 last Friday on homecoming. They were the number 1 power-rated team in San Diego last week. And now they've fallen all the way to number 4, Dave. But I think the big story for Steel Canyon is, and, we didn't get the word officially, but they did have a special teams touchdown last week. So the Cougars were eaten, hopefully, on Saturday following the win.
Well, they were definitely boy, they were excited from Friday on campus. And then, of course, they'd have those homecoming dances the following day on the Saturday. And boy, I tell you what, I've never seen anything like that. Got to see the other side of things instead of just the gridiron. I think it was 980 tickets sold for a dance. Can you imagine? A lot of people, a lot of kids.
And congratulations to T-Max Numa and Braylon Willis, the homecoming king and queen out there last week at Steel Canyon.
It just was it was amazing the whole week. To be honest, out there they really have a great team of ASB and administrators and athletic. I mean, just everybody out there really supports the team. They got that great coaching staff. And at the same time, what I appreciate most, and I'm not quoting anybody, but I just know in my heart that that's just how Coach Longerbone works, and I know that he definitely he was playing to win, but I also think that he didn't want to keep his first stringers in there too long and risk injury. Not only that, but I think he also, knowing that, I think he thinks very highly of Coach Ron Berner, and I don't think anybody wants to run the score up. And that was one of our topics a couple years ago with Hutchison, the old coach of the Valhalla Norsemen from years ago. He did a piece on that about running the score up, and I really admire coaches that they take their players out once they're at a certain mark, and not only for running a score up, but keep your players healthy. I mean, it's a long season. You want them for those CIF playoffs, especially if you're undefeated. You want those guys top notch. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, in a game like that, and then we'll get into Valhalla. I mean, this last game against El Cap.
I think that Coach Longerbone maybe does subscribe to the theory of keeping things respectable. After all, Dave, when we talk about the official power ratings where Steel Canyon took a hit on their rating last week, it wasn't because they didn't go out and stomp El Capitan 70-0, because the amount you defeat somebody by isn't weighed into the official CIF power ratings. It doesn't matter how much you win by. It just matters if you won or lost. At least that's what they say with the secret formula. So I'm going to take them at their word. All you got to do is win the football game, and that's what they did. In fact, it was El Capitan that won the second half, 13-0. But Steel Canyon got off, Dave, with Chance Johnson. He returned a pair of punts, one in the first quarter, late in the first quarter, and the other early in the second quarter. He also had an interception in the game. The Cougar defense also scored on a pick six as a tip pass by an El Capitan receiver bounced into corner Antoine Walker's hands, and he ran in for a touchdown. So a great day for Steel Canyon last week. They're expected to take this renewal of the Hamashaw helmet. They're expected to beat Valhalla handily in this game, but Valhalla, just be interesting to see. Keegan Baker, he did not play in last week's game. Not sure if he'll be playing in this game. There's been talk that maybe he's just being maybe rested for important contests. I think this would qualify as one of them. I don't see Valhalla winning the league title, but it's nice to play for a perpetual trophy against a rival team, if you will. So I'm not sure where that stands, but Kalady Lindsay had 54 yards on 10 carries, and Josh Meredith had 3 receptions for 66 yards last week against Helix. Last year, these two teams played, Dave, on that Lightning night. Again, it's kind of like all these matchups the same week. And Steel Canyon was leading 21-0 at halftime, and the game, of course, was not renewed after the teams came out for second half. Chris Carter, he had a 55-yard touchdown in the first half of that game last year. Cougars have held the trophy for the last 2 years, but the series all-time is tied 8-1. I've got Steel certainly winning this one, Dave. Big. 5 touchdowns, at least.
Yeah, I think it's almost a carbon copy of the game we were just talking about, Santana and Monte Vista, except for one more win on the Santana side. Steel Canyon, undefeated, playing 3-4 Valhalla. I mean, I don't. Again, I agree with you. I don't see why you wouldn't play Baker and give your team the best chance. You still want to get some wins, and
maybe he has been hurt. I just don't know. He has not played in nearly 2 games. I think he might have played the beginning of the game 2 games back. Maybe he didn't play. I don't know. We don't hear much from Valhalla, unfortunately.
And I wanted to add to that. You're talking about the Lightning Storm quite a few times. I happened to be at one of the only games that was not canceled and was played in its complete, and that was El Cajon and Mount Miguel, out at Mount Miguel in Spring Valley. I don't know how it happened, but somehow the clouds kind of, I don't know if it's they headed southwest or what but they came in. We saw no lightning, a couple of drops of rain, and it left. And we got to continue the game with dry conditions for the most part. Really weird that I had the only game. I think Mount Miguel ended up winning that one big, but it was just an interesting fact that last year I happened to be at a complete game while the rest of them were all canceled and reviewed, and just real interesting. But yeah, I'm going to take Steel Canyon by 3 touchdowns.
Okay. And no problem for Valhalla. I mean, right now they are headed to the playoffs, despite these tough games on this tough schedule. I mean, they might be in a situation where they have to defeat El Capitan to avoid missing the playoffs, but they still might make it. So they're looking fine. Let's move on.
I still don't like the number 5. I still don't agree with the number 5 on Steel either. Just my opinion, as we talked about on the rankings and how I'm very subjective to that. I think number 5's a little anemic for me, but moving on.
Yeah. Well, and again, when I list the rankings here for our show, I am listing the Union Tribune media poll, and I will state that Steel Canyon still is number 4 in the official CIF Power ratings. But that rating will take a hit this week, however,
Valhalla,
because they're playing Valhalla. So that's where that stands. That's where the news will be. next Tuesday when those rankings come out, and I'll be very interested to see what happens. I don't think they'll fall behind, Madison. I mean, if you go by the strength of schedule, according to CIF, Madison played the toughest schedule, and so I have a problem with that because Cathedral Catholic and Helix look like they've played elite schedules for any team in the entire state. So that's something that they're going to have to fix, I think, or I don't know. That's something that people are talking about that I can't say for sure. I'm just listening to what other people are saying. So let's move. You're right. Let's stop talking about it and move on to more action with Granite Hills and El Capitan. Dave, you were at the game last week, and it was a great game. Granite Hills played terrific. Homecoming king Jeremiah Satberry had that 62-yard interception return. The Eagles were leading a thrilling game late in the fourth quarter before relinquishing control when Jamie Odom, as you talked about that, it was the play of the year, Dave, when he ran that return for a touchdown. But, Justice McComb, he threw for 267 yards and 3 touchdowns, 2 of them to Richard Junie Harris, and I want to apologize to Junie right now. I typed in a graphic and I had the wrong name on the graphic, Dave, on the video that you took. I thought it was Setterberg because I'm old, and Coach Cobbs and those guys ordered silver numbers on their blue uniforms, which they should be ordering white numbers all the time. But that's just the old man in me. Anyways, so it was Junie that had that long touchdown on the video that you shot, Dave, last week in the big game. Sorry, brother.
Well, I got to say, just like you, as you guys always say, once Scotty, always a Scotty. I'm going to say always an Eagle, but I definitely keep it at I got to keep it professional, but there's still a little bit in there. Seeing them play two great games, and sorry to say, just shooting themselves in the foot after leading almost identical times left in the game too. That's what's really ironic about it. And I also wanted to mention not only about Satbury, he was also crowned the king of homecoming also at Granite Hills that evening. And boy, has he really been, Jeremiah's really stepped up. I think he's definitely one of the key components of that defense now, especially as far as the pass rush is concerned. And with that being said, I think watching film, I'm sure Ron Berner and Sean McDade and crew, I'm sure that they're looking at it right now that they definitely might even have 2 guys making sure that they block that side and make sure that Jeremiah doesn't get in there, because even as quick as Wick is, this guy's got a good set of legs on himself, and he's a big fella, and definitely athletic defensive player. But I think we don't give the offense enough credit a lot of times, but it's unfortunate. It's because the last 2 weeks, both the Cougar defense and the Grossmont defense were able to shut down the biggest threat. And the biggest threat is Justice McComb. He can beat you with his legs. He can beat you with his arm. He has been on the team long enough that he's definitely the sheriff on the field. He definitely surveys the field. He can recognize the defense, but they've found ways to interrupt that vision and catch him off guard at times. But like you said, he still had great numbers. It's just the little things. I think I remember seeing maybe 2 or 3 passes that are way off target, and that was due to the pass rush that was coming in, and he wasn't able to escape the pocket quickly enough. But and let's give credit where credit was due. The running game was working actually pretty well for them, all things considered. Though Junie Harris was he got a couple of big chunks, as you mentioned as well, and he's able to slither his way through there, and even on some of those run backs on a kickoff or a punt return, he is very quick, and he does find those seams, kind of like Mr. Baker from Valhalla. And Kevon Martin had a couple of good runs as well. I think that's really ultimately what they want. What they want to do is solidify that, like most teams do, solidify that running game and open it up for Justice, because we know he's got a great arm. He's got great receivers. You know, he's got James Johnson. He's got Zetterberg. He's also he's got that. What we saw 2 weeks ago, Zach Burton wide open at that time, but definitely got a good target there too. And these backs can also catch. Junie Harris can catch, and so can Martin. So this one here, tough order for El Cap. I think also Granite Hills, they have a history of, I don't know the exact numbers off the top of my head, but they have defeated El Capitan quite a few times as of late. But they've been the games have been close at times. On the other side, El Cap, I think, has got one of the most underrated offenses in the conference, really. Wick's been fantastic all year long. The Oakleys have been fantastic all year long. Anybody would love to have Donnie Green in their backfield. I'm sure you would, and not to mow your lawn. So I think the biggest issue has been the defense for El Cap. They got to find a way to shore that up and take away some of those big plays and get a better pass rush on some of these players like Justice and stack up the box. But I think that's really the only way to defeat Granite is turnovers and keep Justice and his offense off the field. Time possession, get a couple turnovers, run the rock, and Donnie Green, they're definitely good at it.
Yeah, I was back in 2016. I remember being at a game, Dave, at El Capitan that the Vaqueros won 17-16. They blocked an extra point or a field goal, I want to say, the last play of the game, I think it was, and
yes,
got out of there with a 17-16 win. But the Vaqueros, they outscored the Cougars 13-0 in the second half last Friday night. Hauser had a couple of touchdown passes in the second half, one to Antoine Yoakley, one was 70 yards to Kalen Lavallee. And so they did show some explosiveness. I'll say this, the Vaqueros are going to need to win probably 2 of their last 3 games to have a chance to qualify for the postseason. So this looks like the pretty good spot to try to get that upset. Granite Hills coming off an emotional loss to Grossmont. So El Capitan hungry for that win, Dave. And I'll just mention, the whole wild card in this thing, El Capitan's got to find something, some way, somehow to get over the hump and get this one victory. Well, this is the week. This is the week we've been waiting for all season at El Capitan High School. It's the 60th anniversary. It's homecoming, and it's going to be a huge, huge event. Alumni are coming back from as far back as we can remember, 60 years of El Capitan High School football, and it's going to be celebrated this Friday night at home. So maybe they can kind of channel some of that energy and upset the Eagles.
Well, speaking of the Vaqueros, I was fortunate to see them play. Unfortunately, I had to leave because there were some other games that were on our docket. We were a little shorthanded, but the game I saw against Patrick Henry, where they'd already scored 52 points at the end of the first quarter, So there's no downfall as far as I'm concerned on the offense. As a matter of fact, I enjoyed watching every snap. They they have some great schemes, and I think once they get this defense figured out, I think that I think El Cap has brighter days ahead. And now with this changeover as well, I think that you're going to definitely see El Capitan once again. They're going to be competing for crowns for sure.
Well, not only that, Dave, but I don't know. Maybe I was just being biased in this whole situation. Now I think we're going to have some more exciting games, some more games to choose from, less blowouts.
And that is the biggest thing. That's that's what I took from Steve Dolan on Dolan's Dugout. I think it was the first or the second episode that you were talking with him about that. And I mean, he brought up the biggest point. I mean, why are you going to penalize the kids that were in elementary school at the time that Brad Cagle and company had that fantastic team, and then pass it down to them by the time they get over there years later, and they're playing the Madisons and playing some of the tougher squads that they really shouldn't be facing.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, they were kind of working on a 2-year cycle, and they obviously felt they needed to do something. I'm sorry we keep going back to this, but they felt like they needed to do something right away. And, I don't know if it's because those bigger schools are just looking out. I don't think this is a matter of looking out for themselves. I don't think, what does that even mean? But we just want some exciting games. We kind of want to get rid of some of these blowouts that, we're running clock in the second half, and the winning team doesn't want that. The winning team doesn't want that. They want to go compete in those look, Steel Canyon might get left out of this situation with an undefeated record, because they had to play Valhalla and El Capitan. I'm sorry. I don't know. I'm just a guy on a YouTube box. I don't even know what I'm talking about. So, but, that's what it looked like to me, according to these power ratings and everything. So that's where it's at. That's fine. It's fine. And we're going to have more games. Look, it's not, those stronger teams have to go out and get the extra game. They have to go out and get the extra schedule. It does bring into effect that those Valley teams, they're going to lose one of their non-conference games. But you know what? We're going to get some more interesting conference games back. Matchups that aren't necessarily happening right now that could be interesting. So I don't know. I think the team that it hurts maybe the most might be the Braves, because now, they'll have to play El Capitan and Valhalla, and not be able to schedule an equivalent team, down in Division 4 or 5. So, anyways, Dave, let's you have a comment again? It looks like you have a comment.
I'm just saying, I know I'm the one that really keeps bringing it up, and that's because it really it's been wearing on me throughout the season that we've been talking about. We touched on it last year too. Towards the end of the season, and I know it's all subjective, but I just think it's, and you're right. Last thing I'm going to say, it is going to be harder on the Braves, but there's just going to be more games that are going to be competitive. And you know what? The Braves are going to get their share. They're going to get some. They're going to get an Abraham in there again. They're eventually going to get a Cliff in there again. And they're going to compete as well. So everybody's going to have a chance.
Yeah. And don't worry. I mean, look, the Braves are going to do something. We'll talk about them right now. Let's just talk about them right now. Because, look, our some of our favorite players of the Braves are only juniors. And I know that this will take effect next year. So watch out for the Braves, okay? Just saying. Anyways, Dave, they're going to be taking on Mount Miguel in a neat matchup because both teams are 3-4. And Mount Miguel's probably expected to win. Dave, last I checked, Mount Miguel senior wide receiver Jaheim Allen Pompey reportedly leads the nation in receiving yards with nearly 1,300 yards. He's on pace to set the San Diego CIF section record, which is just 1,742 yards. But you know what would make it a little bit easier for Jaheim to set the section record, and that would be if Mount Miguel can, make the playoffs and win 1 or 2 games. That would kind of assure it. Right now, Now, Miguel, they're in ninth in the official CIF power ratings. It looks like they're, kind of headed to the postseason. They can't afford to lose a game like this against the Braves. They're certainly playing pretty decent. Anyway, last week, Dave, in their game against Monta Vista, Jaheim Allen Pompey had 7 receptions for 188 yards and 2 more touchdowns. He has 60 receptions this year and 14 touchdowns. Wow.
Yeah, and I think that they have, and then we talk about him every week because JD really is he's one of the prolific passers in the Valley League, and in the San Diego section for his division, and I think that he's going to continue to probably set some records before the season is all said and done. I think some credit will also go to head coach Troy Starr and his coordinators in molding this young man. But I think he also he's one of those athletes, I think, just watching him myself, that has that natural athletic capability. Just watching him, and you saw him, the way he's able to hang in that pocket, and he sees some of those big linebackers coming at him, and he just steps to the side, or he takes that hit. He doesn't run away. He doesn't throw. Sometimes I think we should throw the ball away, but he tucks that ball and he takes his hit. He gets up, and a lot of times the next play he takes somebody for 60 yards. I think he's just a true athletic high school quarterback. I wish he had a little more height, because I know that the ability's there. He's got the ability to do so much, and I'm sure the last time you saw him, I'm sure you enjoyed every moment of it and watching him hook up with his favorite receiver, Allen.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And another big story out of the Mount Miguel camp has been JD Laverdiere. He had 3 more rushing touchdowns in addition to his connections with Jaheim last week. And, I kind of teased Laverdiere when we were with him and on these podcasts about his 2-yard rushing average. But hey, what does it matter? He's got 13 rushing touchdowns, Dave. He knows how to get into the end zone. So I expect the Matadors to beat the Braves this week. Hey, the Braves were only a minute and a half away last week, Dave, from defeating undefeated Castle Park on the road. They came back from a 19-6 deficit. Clarence Johnson tied the game with a 25-yard run with under 5 minutes to play. The Braves took to the air for once with Joe Malone. He passed for 213 yards and 2 touchdowns, including a 21-yarder to Johnson for the first score of the game in the first quarter. And the Braves would rally. Demarius Hyde had a 6-yard touchdown reception from Malone in the fourth quarter. So I think there could be some fun out there this Friday night. Certainly, I like the Matadors to win this game, probably by about 3 or 4 touchdowns.
But gosh darn it, I said it last week. I'm the one that said it. And when I watched that scoreboard, I told everybody that I ran into that, I'll tell you what, I said, you know what? I think that they are capable of defeating this undefeated Castle Park team, and no one believed that was even a remote possibility. And that just tells you about the heart and the desire to win and to believe in themselves. And they came quite close to defeating that undefeated team. I'll tell you what, that right there tells me that I'm going to go out on a limb. Some are probably going to say you're crazy, just like they did last week about the Castle Park. No offense, JD. No offense, Mr. Allen. No offense, Coach Starr. But you know what? They have had quite a few heartbreaking losses in a row. I think that they play great defense as well, and the way they were throwing the ball last week, if they continue to play as they did against Castle Park, I got the Braves by 1 point.
Good upset pick, Dave. I hope you're right. I know your dad would not pick an upset that big, but certainly I respect you supporting our Braves this week. And like I said, next year they'll be playing some of these teams. Hey, turn this game around, put the Braves at home. I would be more apt to agree with you. That's for sure.
I tell you, and I know I've said it a lot of times, and I will continue to say it, Coach Osborne has done things with these young athletes that he's had this year, and he had last year. And whether they end up winning this one and, 4-4, or by the end of the season, 4-6, they're still going to get a playoff spot. And they didn't win any games last year. We'll take away the forfeit of the Sweetwater game. I think he's done a tremendous job, not only again on the field, but just the character of these kids. You talk to them on the side. I talked to them personally on the sidelines, and these kids are they've grown up tremendously just in speaking to them on the sidelines about telling each other to keep your head up. We got this. We got this. Throughout the game, they could be down 3 touch. We got this. We're a team. We got this. So a tremendous job, and another San Diego State guy, Nick Osborne, Coach Nick Osborne.
I'll say this about some of these Braves games, and even the one I'm really almost talking about the defeats, because they've kind of like come back at the end of the game. These guys are clutch, man. These guys score when it's necessary. It's like at the moment, teams that kind of come up short, sometimes they can't get that late touchdown. These guys can get that late touchdown. They just don't have enough bulk. They don't have enough in the numbers to keep it going long term in some of these games, but they know how to score. And when they need a score, they've come up with a big score. And give them this much. Okay, so Castle Park, we saw that. So Elkhorn Valley went on the road at Castle Park, the number 2 team in Division 5, barely lost. A minute and a half left. Castle Park scores, right? Braves have already had a taste of Vincent Memorial, the number 1 team. It was kind of a lopsided game, but they saw them. They measured them. Look, the Braves are in 7th in the official CIF Division 5 ratings. Okay, they are a competitor in the playoffs for sure. They're going to be going in against the likes of Mountain Empire, Francis Parker, Claremont, Crawford, teams that they can beat. So there's a big chance for the Braves in the postseason to get to the semifinals or the championship game even. And I think that's how Coach Osborne can keep that energy bus rolling into the postseason.
And that is his key, and I love it. He uses that energy bus, and he talks about it just about every Friday night. And he's just one of those rare just individuals. I'm not even going to say a coach, just one of those rare individuals that really a genuine person that really believes in his craft, believes in changing people and their thoughts and turning them into their miscues into opportunities. That's what I was getting at.
Yeah. And good thing the gas prices are going down. They're going to need to fill up that energy bus for a road trip probably in the playoffs, unless they can upset somebody, but I don't think they mind. And I think they can go in there and win the road playoff game. They'll need an upset to secure a home game, over one of these teams, say the Matadors or the Wolfpack, somewhere along the line to get to that home game in the first round. So, well, that's something to shoot for. Okay, we got another league game to cover. We're going to switch leagues here and talk about, Dave, the Christian Patriots. Hey, Dave, the Patriots brought their own sacks to Mira Mesa High last week. They dominated Mira Mesa, bringing home a 28-10 win to improve to 2-0. In the Eastern League, junior lineman Alonzo Glenn had 3 sacks Alex Markowitz, Van Nevling, Elio Myers also each had a sack, and cornerback Carson Opper had a pair of interceptions for Christian. Dave, some guys that we haven't even mentioned on the show yet, and that's why I think Christian is such big news. They've moved in to second place in the CIF power ratings, so they're right up there. Probably not going to catch powerful Bishops, but they could be on a collision course with Bishops in Division Two if they keep this rolling. Now, here's the caveat with Morse coming in to Valley Stadium this week. You know, in league play last year, Christian went on the road and kind of surprised Morse. It was kind of an even matchup, but they were on the road, but holding them to 8 points. They won 14-8 on the road in the regular season. They came into the playoffs, and Morris came into Valley Stadium last November and handed Christian a 34-6 defeat in the second round. And Christian, quite frankly, was stunned on that night. Morris ran for 375 yards in that playoff matchup, and they were the ones doing the sacking. They sacked Christian 4 times.
I can tell you, I'll let the cat out of the bag first and foremost. I will be at that game. It will be homecoming for Christian High School. I am interested in this game, and I actually personally dropping off one of our fine patches to one of our fine East County athletes, Gabe Crook. I dropped his Letterman patch off, and had a chance to have a few words with the offensive coordinator, Dave Beezer. And we've been friends a couple years. He was friends with my dad and you for several years, and it's we've developed also definitely a great relationship from coach to media. At any rate, I was dropping off the envelope, and he says, "Wait a minute, Dave, sit down a second. I want to show you some plays from the Mira Mesa game. I just want to show you something." And of course, Dave, I'm not going to give away anything that I said, but I'll tell you what. I saw. He said he's got a sophisticated offense, and that's no lie. And he said it's one of the most. His quote was the most sophisticated offense he's coordinated in 27 years. So that's saying a lot. Obviously, it has translated into quite a few wins as of late, and he believes that his team pretty much could and will win out the remainder of their games. He is very confident in not only his quarterback, but he's also in the schemes and also in his offensive line. And if you watched any of the video that I even put up, you'll see that they have some different looks, and they're very successful on a lot of the ways that they put that offensive line together and make everything work up front. That's about as much as I'm going to tell you about that. But like I said, usually I stop by for a few minutes, and it's always a good time though. It actually is to be able to stop by Beezer's office for a few minutes. It turns into maybe about a half hour or so, and just watching him and how proud he is of his kids, and how they really learn the playbook. And he doesn't even call it a playbook. He calls it more of a they just know the plays, and that's how much I'll give you on that. It's real interesting. I had a great time. Back to the game itself, though. I think I think they're looking for play or payback time as far as Christian's concerned over Morse. I think that they have everything offensively and defensively, even special teams wise, as I saw, to take care of the Tigers this year, and especially being homecoming. And let's not forget Your one of your personal favorites, number 11, Salacup. He's always in on every play as well, and they're just really a dynamic team to watch. They're not the biggest of guys, but they're quick, they're smart, they're football players, they're athletes.
Well, I just think it's interesting that Christian all of a sudden, after they certainly had one loss that they were certainly disappointed with, but they fought their way back, and now they're in a situation where they're going to be, barring any unforeseen circumstances, i.e. an upset along the way in the playoffs. I mean, they're going to be matched up somewhere along the line, probably with teams like Santa Fe Christian and maybe Bishops in the playoffs, and those will be exactly the matchups that they've been playing for. But first things first, another league championship is the goal for the Patriots, and it would have to start here against Morse. It's a lot closer rated than maybe people make it out to be, because Morse has the 0-1 record in league. They were kind of upset a little bit by La Jolla, so maybe Christian is expected to win this one by 3, 4, maybe even 7 points. Dave, I don't know where you might call it. Morse is ranked 7th right now in the official power ratings in Division 2. They're in the same division as Christian. So I've got Christian winning this game, but I don't think it's out of the question that Morse is going to pose a difficult challenge. Nate Stein had 3 touchdowns last week, Dave, and nearly 100 yards in the Patriot victory over the Marauders.
Well, after what I've seen, after seeing the highlight reel and what I saw today over the Marauders, and then seeing against University City, I think that I'm going to go with the Patriots this round versus the Tigers. I'm going to go with the Patriots by 3 touchdowns.
Okay, great. Okay, Dave, we have one non-league game this week to talk about, and it's a pretty good one, actually. West Hills, their season has come full circle. I'm going to give them a pass for last week's game because I thought they played pretty well in the big Mayor's Cup showdown that they lost to Santana, but boy, a competitive game really all the way through. We gave West Hills a big chance against the Sultans, and I say that they came through with a strong effort despite losing, but they're going to go up and face a tough Escondido team, Dave. The Cougars are 5-2 and are ranked pretty high right now in the division standings, so I think this is a pretty formidable opponent for West Hills. Escondido is ranked 6th currently in Division 4. We know West Hills is in Division 3, and they're kind of in the middle of the pack. Right now they're 10th, so it's kind of an important game. If they lose this one, I think they take kind of a hit to their rating, yet they're underdogs in this game.
Yeah, what I saw for West Hills, they're actually, and this is off Max Preps, they're ranked 12th in Division 3, and it was kind of interesting to see them ranked below Valhalla, with the Norsemen being 3 and 4. So that was kind of interesting to me.
Yeah,
I mean, what do we say?
Valhalla's played the tougher schedule, and
they did beat West Hills too.
Good point. Great point. And the official the official rankings, have West Hills in 10th, so they're inside the playoffs. But unfortunately, West Hills, it's gonna be close. It really is gonna be close. I mean, if you win this game, West Hills, this is win and you're in, as long as you don't lose to the Braves. But this is kind of win and you're in, and other than that, it's going to be close. That's the way I feel.
I was just going to highlight some of what they've had, though. I mean, right now at this point, I think another reason why they have to beat Escondido, and they may still have to go out on the road, they lose to Escondido, they're going to be on the road for the playoffs, period. I
don't think there's any question they'll be on the road for the playoffs. If they win this game, they might be able to move up to a home game. It's funny. If they win this game, they might be able to move up to a home game. lose this game, they're on the road, but it's close. Like I said, they might end up, 11th or 12th, and maybe hoping that some team doesn't upset some other team.
Well, yeah, and that was my thing, and it's funny. I looked at the numbers of the two quarterbacks, with being the senior quarterback and Gerardo Hernandez, the way they're ranked in the division, and also they're one after the other ranked, with Hernandez being number 4 and Braden being number 5, and they got similar amounts of throws and completion rates. Neither one of them have picks. They both have 6 touchdowns apiece. But like I said, the numbers are very, very similar as far as they're concerned. I think Gerardo's, because of his familiarity with the offense, I think he is the go-to guy. But they've thrown the ball almost identical numbers, like I said before, and their completion percentage is very similar too. But we'll go on to a couple other guys that we all know and love, and is the heart of the Wolfpack, and it has been for a while. And that's both on the offensive side and the defensive side, and that's Jake Mayhew. As far as running back, linebacker, he's got five touchdowns. He's carried the ball so far this year 92 times for 391 yards, and that's just so far. We still have a little bit of season left. And then next down from him, quite a difference as far as how many carries he's got, is Christini, and he's carried the ball 10 times for 109 yards. So quite a difference. Correction, 32 times for 216 yards. That's true. And then the biggest key, and we all know this one, is their best receiver, and I think next to Jake Mayhew, I think the next most valuable player on the team is definitely Cole Klingerman. He's their leading receiver. He has 34 receptions, close to 500 yards, hovering around there with 468. He's got 9 touchdowns. And then on the defensive side, I look for some numbers, and that's really where the struggle is on the defensive side of the ball. I think I saw Kip Klingerman is leading with 3 interceptions, and right down from him though is Christini with 2. But I didn't see a lot of tackles per se for any individual. Maybe 1 or 2 here and there. So that tells me either different tacklers on each play, or that's really the weak link, because the offense, I think, is firing on all cylinders. I think that and very athletic, skilled players on that side of the ball, and that's what's led to their 4 wins that they have.
Yeah. And I keep messing up, Dave. I keep saying the Pack's going to play the Braves. They already beat the Braves. Remember,
27-0.
Yeah. The dilemma for the Pack. This is what I want to say. I apologize for that. I think I've actually said 2 or 3 times in this broadcast. But the key, or the problem for the Pack, is that they're playing both, Mount Miguel and Monte Vista after this. Now, those are both winnable games and losable games, right? I mean, we kind of have the Wolfpack, certainly on equal footing, maybe just behind those 2 teams. But I think that the fact they play one of them at home and one on the road, they need to win one of those games. If they don't win one of those games, that's where they're going to be on the outside looking in. So let me just clarify on that. I'm not saying anything that these guys don't already know. just trying to inform the fans, and I'm informing them incorrectly. But bottom line is West Hills needs to win one of those two games, but this certainly would help them to win a game against Escondido. Like I said, Escondido's in Division 4, and losing this game is going to hurt a little bit, I think. But like I said, I think you might pick West Hills. I might end up picking Escondido just because they look like the stronger team in the ratings. But I want to pick West Hills. What are you going to do?
I'm going to say West Hills with the upset, and I'm going to go with them by a field goal. And let me ask you this.
Yeah.
What happens if they win out? That really creates a big. What if they end up beating Monte Vista and defeating the Mount McGill Matadors? That changes the whole dynamic of the valley.
No, it doesn't. I mean, Santana is still.
Well, Santana's gonna,
yeah,
but
if as long as they beat Monte Vista, I think.
But then we're talking. There's another possibility. Even if they lose the Escondido game and they beat Monte Vista and they beat Mount McGill, is there a possibility of a home playoff game still if you lose to Escondido? That's my question.
Yes, but I think it'll be very close. West Hills is they're in a very precarious situation right now, I think, in their standing. I think more so than any other team in the entire East County. I think their playoff balance is the most delicate. And they really got to try to come away with 2 wins out of the 3 just to be sure. And this one would kind of, I think, be more important. I don't know, man. Good thing they have.
Well,
good thing the math takes care of this. We go.
Well, so what we might be saying is some other factors might come into play. Are we possibly saying that they might not even be in charge of their own destiny completely?
No, I don't know. I think they have to win 2 of 3. So,
and Escondido is a huge key, because of the ranking system, and I think I put it this way: a win over either Mount McGill or Monte Vista, and a win over Escondido, and they could host a playoff game.
Yeah, well, it's tough because Escondido, I believe, ends up like Escondido has a really weak schedule. That's kind of what hurts them in this whole mess. That's why they can't lose to them. They don't want to lose this game, but the ratings and all the numbers and they're on the road. They're underdogs. They're underdogs by like 3 points, and they're underdogs from like anywhere from 3 to 6 points. And Escondido's in Division 4 playing like the weakest schedule in Division 4. That's why I'm so confused. Maybe we can move on, but go ahead.
Again, subjective, but strength of schedule. And that is what it comes down to for me. And that is another reason why I think West Hills gets the win.
Okay, good. I think West Hills thinks that they can. I think they expect to win this football game. And if I'm on West Hills, I expect to win this football game. I'm just alluding to these numbers that point to the fact that, Escondido might currently be, rated a little bit higher than West Hills. But it's a very even matchup and can go either way, certainly. And, West Hills does have some success, I believe, against Escondido in this series. They've been playing the last year or 2, I believe. So, anyways, Dave, you mentioned Cole Klingerman. He had a couple of touchdowns. He had the 2 touchdowns in the game against Santana. And you mentioned Braden Oberg, the sophomore. It's funny because that's what we said at the beginning of the year, that the 2 quarterbacks were so alike. But as the season evolved, Hernandez became the quarterback that was kind of making the bigger plays or passing for the touchdowns and even playing a little bit more than Oberg. But last game, it was Oberg that threw the 2 touchdown passes. So, both quarterbacks can handle the job. Coach Ash has got it that they never turn the ball over. That's another thing that always gives West Hills a chance in every game that they play, pretty much, is that they rarely make mistakes. And that is last week they were penalized a lot, which really doesn't. But I think I just kind of write that off to a rivalry game. That happens more in rivalry games. They were penalized way too. Santana also, I believe, was penalized way too much in that game. I'm not sure how the penalties broke down, so I don't want to get that one wrong. But anyways, West Hills defeated the Cougars last season 24-7 in Santee. Mayhew did rush for 63 yards and a touchdown in that one. Note this, Dave, West Hills had 7 sacks against Escondido in last year's game. So let's get the pass rush on. And you got anything else on that one, brother?
I just think that
I got Escondido, by the way, by 1 point.
my thing is, I asked that very question and on camera with you, with Coach Ash. I asked him about, are we going to use these 2 quarterbacks throughout the season? Are they going to compete, or are they going to play? Are you going to play them both? And sure enough, he's played them both. 6 touchdowns each, very similar numbers. I think he's doing it the right way. We haven't thrown any picks. We're not coughing up the football. Why not?
Yeah, I have
more options, and that's why I'm saying West Hills by a field goal then.
Okay, great. I'm glad we have a disagreement. Glad we have something, and I hope you win that game. Dave, Mountain Empire going to travel to play the H word. And, this year, it's going to be an L word if Mountain Empire doesn't pull off this upset.
All I got to say on this game for Mountain Empire, they do have a couple of players at skilled positions. There's a handful. I think what they really, the catalyst is the youth. That's it. They are a young team. I think it's going to take a year or two. I think Coach Van could very well do the same thing he did with the other teams in the past. Last year's team that won the league championship. Speaking of Mountain Empire, I just want to get this out of the way real quick, because I did receive a text today about their campaign and fundraising program, and Trevor Elliott will be pitching for the Mesa Olympians. Just in today. I just thought I'd share that with everybody since we are talking about Mountain Empire. I think Mesa is probably, I'll tell you, both sides should be equally impressed, and they should definitely they should definitely have a great season from him, considering his past pitching resume. But anyway, I thought, since we're talking about Mountain Empire, but like I say, a handful of players. We talked to Jericho, the back, last night. He's gotten better each game. He's gotten more carries. He's getting bigger chunks of yards. I think it's only a matter of time before he really starts having some of those big breakout games. And then we have Khalil also behind center. We had him. He was also a athlete of the week early on in the season when he had, I think it was maybe 300 or 400 yards through the air and 90 yards on the ground himself. And then Marcus Smith, not too much on the defensive side that you hear about, but they've had their share of some blowouts. Unfortunately, like I said, they are a young team, but at the same time, they did have to come off a great win last week. But this one is going to be their toughest of the year, most definitely.
Yeah, it's their arch rival, and it's on the road. So right now, this is the game that they're pointing at. They're going to make the playoffs, it looks like to me. So I'm not too worried about that. But it'd be nice to get a win somewhere along the line to make sure, because in their 3 games left, they're going to have to make sure they try to get a win somewhere in there to make sure they get in the playoffs. And I think they could beat Calipatria. I think that's the important game of the season as far as making the playoffs is concerned. But this is always the most important game of the season for the Mountain Empire Redhawks, and that's when you play rival Holtville. We talked to Jericho Brennan, and I don't think he let it slide. I mean, he knows the stakes when they're playing, and he adhered to calling them H word throughout the telecast. He never said Holtville once. So we kind of make fun of that, but it's a real thing out there.
Absolutely. Good luck to Mountain Empire. I know you're going to touch on your 8-man real quick here, and then I'd like to thank our advertisers after that.
Sure. Yeah, it is a big, big game this Friday night. I mean, it's a huge game. It's the regular season game of the year in 8-man football in San Diego County. It's the top 2 teams in the 8-man ratings, official ratings, standings in the Ocean League. Both teams are 4-0 now. The Knights haven't played since September 20th, a 60-8 win at Borrego Springs. The Knights since have received a pair of forfeits. I don't know if those other teams didn't have enough players, or the Knights are just crushing everybody that they didn't want to send a weaker opponent. Not to say they're going to get beat. You just don't want to get anybody hurt or anything like that, because this team is really performing at an exceptional level right now. I'm talking about the Foothills Christian Knights. This game should decide the Ocean League Championship. I mentioned the Knights winning at Borrego Springs 60-8. Well, the Dragons won at Borrego last week 74-29. So you can almost make some comparative scores there. Both teams winning, by 40 and 50 points respectively. So that's going to be the big one. And the way Foothills is going, I think they can win. I think they might be expected to win. If you look at the 8-man ratings, they are considerably ahead of San Pasqual Academy, but also San Diego Jewish Academy is undefeated in 8-man as well.
All right, and that'll about do it for us. And before we close it out completely, we always appreciate, most importantly, the audience out there, and I want to put it out there as always, because we do have a tremendous young talent that is we almost a gift from Mount McGill High School, and our intern Thomas Ringer has been fantastic with his photos and his journalistic capabilities, and along with he's going to be bringing videos to us next. But thanks, Thomas, and he's just one of them. Hey, type in the chat, send us an email, give us a call, send us a text. We're always looking for somebody to help you reach. If you're interested in journalism, broadcasting, we'd love to help you get to the next level. And at the same time, get you some credit, get you out to some of these big games, and get you out there for free, and writing them up, and getting some good experience, building up a portfolio. Just thought I'd throw it out there. Get a hold of Ramon Scott or myself. We'd love to have you, and we'd love to help you out to get to where you want to be. Next, we couldn't have a show without our good local friends. I'll start with the great food of the county, and Maracarios off of 2nd Street. Yes, I got it. Great. That is my favorite. I'm sure Ramon and others have personal favorites. They've been there forever. Pat Villani was a great friend of my father's, and also I'm sure Moni's ran into him quite a few times. But great pizza, probably one of the best pizzas, and I'm a big fan of Round Table, but I will tell you right now, Monacarillos is much better pizza. No offense to Round Table. Also, our good friends and our great El Cap friends, Barb and Coach Ron Berner from El Cap, and their Nicolosi's location over there off of Mission Gorge. Definitely stop in and try. You know what? Try something else. I always recommend the Sicilian baked macaroni and cheese. But hey, why don't you try something else? Tell me what you think of the place. Tell us, let us know. We can let the burners know as well. But it's definitely and it's a great place to watch a couple of games. They have even had PPR viewings there. Maybe one day we'll have an East County Live viewing there.
I'll tell you one thing. I'll tell you what, Dave. One place where you can get some Sicilian macaroni and cheese this Friday night will be at El Capitan High School during that 60th anniversary homecoming. They are going to be packing plenty of it in the snack bar at the game. So tell them Dave Dickens sent you.
I will definitely, yes, and I will definitely be there, probably shaking your hand at the same time, because if I got to make sure I get there early now so I can get a bite myself before I head over to the Christian homecoming game. Next, our good friend Scott Hoppy Hopgood over at H12 Sports Academy. Baseball season's around the corner, but he's working 365 days a year as far as I see. I'm sure he takes some of the weekends off or goes home early, but it just seems like Hoppy's always there. He's got quite a few former professional and college coaches help you with your pitching, your catching, your hitting. Scott's been he's got a resume of his own, coaching at Sarah at one time, West Hills, and definitely you want to check him out. He's very good at what he does. Also, check out his great technology of the Hit Track system. Been there quite a few times. Anywhere from your basic T-ball little leaguer all the way up to high school. There's still high school players from our conference that go out there and check them out. Also, like to thank our new, well, he's been our friend for years, friends of the family, Ramon Zona forever. From the 2005 great Braves of the day, Abraham Muhazy, and now we will be also covering the San Diego Semi-Pro Kings. You want to check them out. We will be covering them soon. I believe their season starts on the 9th of November, but we will have the schedule updated for you. Check them out. We're looking forward to that. Also, coming up is the sister or brother, if you want to call it, of the ADC original construction company that was sponsoring us. Now we have Alpine Manufacturing. They will be joining the team as well now. And then our tremendous help that we get out of our two sporting goods stores, especially Mr. Rob Treadwell out there at Al Sports Shop. Again, always the personal touch. Does so much for the community, and he hoping one day. I, as a matter of fact, I asked him the other day. Once my son can, when he reaches the age with the work permit, I'd be more than happy to send him your way, and maybe he can work a couple hours over at Al Sports Shop. Boy, wouldn't that be something? But he does things like that. Those are the type of things that he does for the community, and he's always got. If he doesn't have it there, he'll get it for you. And then our great friends at Retro Sports off of Dallas and Fletcher Parkway, Matt Atkinson and Jake out there, and all of his merry men. He's increasing that staff every time I get over there because they're doing concert shirts now. One of their biggest things they do all of the Grossmont High School jerseys and uniforms that you see out there. I think they're working on some of the college as well, and they do them all there right on site. You might want to check them out. That's one of their biggest things. They've done East County sports shirts for us. We're wearing them at all times. Even looking at getting some hats done in the near future, maybe some jackets. Check them out. Also, your equipment that you can't find some of that rare stuff over there next to the Bull Weevil in La Mesa. Check them out. And if I forgot anybody, I apologize. But for Ramon Scott, I'm Dave Dickens, and thank you for joining us at this late hour. And looking forward to seeing you next week.